I'm Natalie Armstrong, 32, and I just discovered my brother Ryan forged my signature to mortgage my house for $450,000. The papers were right there in my home office loan documents with my signature funding his latest business venture. Now, sitting at my parents' dinner table, watching Ryan laugh with his wife Jessica, I slide the evidence across the mahogany surface. Instead of screaming, I simply state, "I know what you did with my house, Ryan." Everyone freezes. The color drains from his face. Sometimes the quietest words hit the hardest. Before I tell you how this family nightmare unfolded, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever dealt with family betrayal, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of survivors who turned their pain into power. Trust me, you'll want to hear how I handled what came next. Ryan and I used to be close. Growing up in suburban Philadelphia, we were the Armstrong siblings who had each other's backs. He defended me from bullies in middle school. I cheered at every one of his high school football games. When our parents fought, which was often, we'd hide in the attic and read comics with flashlights, promising we'd always protect each other. What happened to that bond? The divergence started after college. While Ryan jumped between business ideas, a sports merchandise store, a food delivery app, a cryptocurrency investment group, I put my marketing degree to work in real estate. I lived frugally, took night classes to get my broker's license, and worked 60-hour weeks. After 10 years of grinding, I finally qualified for a mortgage on my dream home, a restored Victorian in a historic neighborhood. The day I got my keys, I stood in the empty living room with its bay windows and original hardwood floors, crying with pride. That house represented every Saturday night I'd worked while friends partied, every vacation I'd skipped, every dollar I'd saved. Meanwhile, Ryan's business ventures kept failing spectacularly. The sports store folded after suppliers sued for unpaid inventory. His food delivery app never made it past the development stage when his partners quit, claiming he mismanaged funds. The cryptocurrency group dissolved amid accusations of misrepresented investments, yet our parents, especially Dad, always made excuses for him. "He's taking big swings," Dad would say at family gatherings. That's how successful people are made. They fail until they don't. Mom would nod supportively while shooting me looks that said, "Why can't you help your brother more?" My consistent success somehow never garnered the same enthusiasm as Ryan's consistent failures. Ryan's marriage to Jessica 3 years ago only amplified the problem. Jessica came from money but wanted more. She drove a car she couldn't afford, wore designer clothes on credit cards, and constantly compared their lifestyle to wealthier friends. "We need to level up," became her mantra, and Ryan's increasingly desperate ventures reflected his attempts to please her. Over the past year, family gatherings had grown uncomfortable. Ryan would corner me in the kitchen or garage. "Nat, I just need a small business loan. 50,000. I'll pay you back in 6 months with interest." When I refused, Jessica would give me the cold shoulder, whispering to our cousins, "She's so selfish. All that money, and won't help family." I started noticing odd things 2 months ago. Bank statements I never opened, calls from mortgage companies I'd never contacted, mail that disappeared from my box. I brushed it off as marketing materials or identity theft attempts. I should have paid closer attention. Last week, while organizing my home office, I found it, a thick manila envelope tucked behind my filing cabinet. Inside were mortgage documents for a $450,000 loan against my house, with my signature perfectly forged listing Ryan as the recipient for business expansion purposes. The documents were processed through a mortgage broker in a different county, probably to avoid detection, since I'm known in my local industry. I sat on my office floor for hours, documents spread around me, moving through shock to disbelief to a cold, calculated rage. The brother who promised to protect me had stolen what mattered most. My home, my security, my future. I could have gone straight to the police. I could have called Ryan screaming. Instead, I made copies of everything, secured the originals in a safety deposit box, and waited for our regular Sunday dinner at our parents' house. This betrayal deserved a special kind of reckoning. Sunday dinner at the Armstrong house had been a tradition since we were kids. Mom still made her famous pot roast. Dad still carved the meat with the same electric knife he'd received as a wedding gift 35 years ago. We still sat in the same assigned seats. Dad at the head, Mom at the foot, Ryan and Jessica on one side, me and previously various boyfriends on the other. I arrived last, a calculated move. The manila folder of evidence tucked into my tote bag felt heavy as lead. "There she is," Mom called as I entered the dining room. "We were about to start without you. Sorry I'm late. Had some unexpected paperwork to handle." I placed the tote beside my chair and accepted Mom's hug. Ryan sat casually swirling his wine, Jessica beside him wearing a new-looking diamond tennis bracelet. My stomach churned. Was my house paying for that? "How's business, Natalie?" Dad asked, passing the mashed potatoes. "Still selling those fancy houses?" "Business is interesting," I replied, watching Ryan. "Lots of surprising developments." Ryan's eyes flickered to mine, then away. He knew something was off. Jessica filled the silence. "Ryan's business is taking off. Tell them about the investor meeting, honey." Ryan straightened up. "Yeah, we're expanding into 3 new markets. The capital finally came through." "Did it?" I asked, taking a slow sip of water. "When exactly did that happen?" 3 weeks ago," Ryan said, his voice steady but his finger tapping nervously against his wine glass. "Everything's moving fast now," Mom beamed. "That's wonderful. See? We always knew you'd make it big." "What kind of capital?" I pressed. "Bank loan? Private investor?" Ryan's glass paused halfway to his lips. "Mix of both." Why the interest suddenly? I reached into my tote and pulled out the folder. Because 3 weeks ago, somebody took out a $450,000 mortgage on my house. The money went directly to Armstrong Ventures, LLC. I slid the papers across the table. "Your company, Ryan." The silence was deafening. "What are you talking about?" Mom finally asked. "Ryan forged my signature to steal equity from my house for his business. I have all the documentation right here, the application, the approval, the fund transfer." Ryan's face had gone pale, but he recovered quickly. "That's ridiculous. You agreed to this. We talked about it extensively." "When exactly did we have this conversation?" "Last month, at Riverside Cafe. You said you'd help with the expansion as a silent partner." I turned to my parents. "I haven't been to Riverside Cafe in over a year." Jessica jumped in, voice honey sweet. "Natalie, you've been so busy lately. Maybe you forgot? You did say you wanted to invest in the family business." "Stop lying." My voice remained eerily calm. "I have the mortgage broker's statement that he never met me in person. All paperwork was handled by Ryan, who claimed to have my power of attorney, which he does not have." Ryan's face twisted. "You were always going to do this, weren't you? Wait until I finally have success within reach and then try to tear me down." Dad reached for the papers. "There must be some misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding. Ryan committed mortgage fraud. That's a federal crime." "Now wait a minute," Mom interjected. "Let's not throw around words like crime and fraud. We're family." "Family doesn't steal from each other," I countered. Ryan slammed his hand on the table. "I didn't steal anything. It was a temporary arrangement. The business is already profitable. I'm going to pay every cent back with interest." "You didn't ask. You forged my signature and mortgaged my house." "Because you would have said no. That's my right. It's my house." Jessica scoffed. "Your precious house. You and that house. Meanwhile, your brother has real ambitions, and you've never supported him." I turned to her. "Is that new bracelet part of the business expense too?" Her hand instinctively covered the diamonds. Dad raised his hands. Everyone calmed down. "Ryan, is what Natalie's saying true? Did you take out this mortgage without her explicit permission?" Ryan looked from Dad to me, then slumped slightly. "I needed the capital. Banks wouldn't approve me with my credit history. The opportunity was time-sensitive." "So you admit it," I said. "I was going to tell you once the first profits came in," Ryan insisted. "You'd never even have known if you hadn't snooped around. It's my house, and I'm your brother. Family helps family. I turned to my parents. Did you know about this? Their silence and exchanged glances told me everything. You did. You knew he was stealing from me. Mom reached for my hand. I pulled away. Honey, we didn't know the specifics, she said. Ryan told us he'd worked out a business arrangement with you. And you believed him? Despite his track record? Dad's jaw tightened. Watch your tone. Your brother made a mistake, but his intentions were good. This business is really taking off. So that justifies fraud? No one's using that word except you, Jessica interjected. I stood up, gathering the papers. Here's what happens next. Ryan, you have 72 hours to contact the bank and reverse this transaction. Otherwise, I'm taking these papers to the police. Ryan's face darkened. You would send your own brother to jail? You would steal your sister's house? Jessica leaned forward. Be realistic, Natalie. It's your word against ours. Ryan's on excellent terms with the mortgage broker. We have emails showing your agreement. Who do you think they'll believe? Especially when we explain how you verbally agreed but are now having regrets. My blood ran cold. You faked emails too? Ryan and Jessica exchanged looks. Don't threaten us, Ryan said quietly. You're not the only one who can gather evidence. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to intervene, to show some moral compass. Instead, Dad said, Natalie, your brother needs this chance. Can't you find it in your heart to help him? Just this once? And that's when I knew. This wasn't just Ryan's betrayal. It was my entire family's. I barely remember driving home that night. The familiar streets of my neighborhood, usually a source of pride, felt threatening, as if at any moment someone might appear to take the rest away from me too. Once home, I double-locked the door, pulled all the blinds, and called the one person I knew I could trust. Diana Reynolds, my college roommate turned corporate attorney. It was after 11 p.m., but she answered on the third ring. Nat, everything okay? I need a lawyer, I said, my voice finally breaking. And a friend. Diana arrived 40 minutes later with legal pads, her laptop, and a bottle of bourbon. I laid out the whole story while she took careful notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she set down her pen and poured us each 2 fingers of bourbon. This is serious, Nat. Mortgage fraud is a federal offense. Ryan could face up to 30 years and $1 million fine. I don't necessarily want him in jail, I admitted. I just want my house secured. The problem is proving he forged your signature without your consent. From what you've told me, they've created a paper trail suggesting you agreed. But I didn't, Diana nodded. I believe you, but we need evidence that stands up in court. The mortgage broker never met me in person. That helps, but it's not definitive. These cases often come down to he said, she said, and unfortunately, you're outnumbered. 3 people, Ryan, Jessica, and the broker may testify against you. My stomach sank. So he gets away with it? I didn't say that. Diana opened her laptop. First step, we document everything. Second, we contact your bank to flag the transaction as fraudulent. Third, we file for an emergency injunction to prevent any further activity on the loan. For the next 3 hours, we created a timeline, organized evidence, and prepared affidavits. By 3 a.m., we had an action plan. Diana would initiate legal proceedings Monday morning. Get some sleep, she advised, packing up. And Nat? Install security cameras tomorrow. Change your locks, too. People who commit fraud often panic when caught. After she left, I couldn't sleep. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Ryan, alternating between threats and pleas. You're making a huge mistake. I can make this work for both of us. If you go to the police, you'll regret it. Please, Nat, I'm desperate here. Jessica will leave me if this falls apart. You've always been jealous of my potential. This is your chance to finally help. I blocked his number. The next morning brought new problems. My bank called. All my accounts were temporarily frozen pending a fraud investigation. Ryan had apparently contacted them, claiming I was having mental health issues and making false accusations to sabotage his business. With my accounts frozen, I couldn't pay my bills. My credit cards were maxed out from recent home renovations. I had maybe $200 cash in my wallet. At work, things deteriorated further. As a real estate agent, reputation is everything, and somehow, rumors were already circulating. 2 clients canceled appointments, citing personal concerns. My broker, Stephanie, called me into her office. "Natalie, I've heard some troubling things about financial irregularities. Is there something you need to tell me?" I explained the situation as calmly as I could. "I believe you," Stephanie said, "but until this is resolved, maybe take a step back from our high-value listings. We can't risk client concerns." Essentially, I was being demoted. Without listings, I wouldn't earn commissions. Without commissions, I couldn't pay my mortgage, the legitimate one, or Ryan's fraudulent one. That evening, my doorbell rang. It was Michael, my boyfriend of 8 months. His concerned expression immediately put me on alert. "Ryan called me," he said once inside. "He's really upset, Nat. Says you're threatening to send him to jail over a misunderstanding." It wasn't a misunderstanding. He forged my signature and mortgaged my house. Michael sat on my couch, looking uncomfortable. He said, "You initially agreed but changed your mind. Something about getting cold feet about the investment." I stared at him. "And you believed him?" "I don't know what to believe. But he's your brother, and he sounds desperate." "Did you know about this beforehand?" Michael's hesitation told me everything. "You did. You knew he was planning to forge my signature. He just said he had a plan to secure investment using family assets. I didn't know the specifics." "Get out," I whispered. "Natalie, be reasonable." "Get out," I screamed, finally losing the composure I'd maintained for days. After Michael left, I called Rachel and Tom Harper, landlords I'd helped purchase several investment properties. When I explained my situation, they immediately offered their vacant rental unit. "Stay as long as you need," Rachel insisted. "We know you're good for it when this mess gets sorted." That night, curled up on a borrowed bed in a borrowed apartment, I hit rock bottom. Maybe I should just give up. Let Ryan have his business loan. Walk away from the house and start over somewhere new. Wouldn't that be easier than fighting my entire family? My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Your father and I have discussed things. If you drop this vindictive campaign against your brother, we can all move forward as a family. If you continue, we'll have to support Ryan through this difficult time, whatever that entails. Please don't make us choose." They were disowning me if I didn't let Ryan steal my house. I threw my phone across the room, buried my face in the pillow, and sobbed until my throat was raw and my eyes were swollen. When I finally looked up, something had changed inside me. The devastation had hardened into resolve. I retrieved my phone and texted Diana, "I'm not backing down, whatever it takes." Then I texted Michael, "We need to talk. Tomorrow, your place." Michael might have betrayed me, but he'd also made a critical mistake. He'd mentioned specific details about Ryan's plan that he could only have known if he'd been involved from the beginning. And I was willing to bet there were messages on his phone to prove it. 2 weeks after discovering Ryan's fraud, my life had completely unraveled. The bank investigation moved at glacial pace while my accounts remained frozen. I couldn't access my own money, couldn't pay bills, couldn't even buy groceries without borrowing cash from friends. Every morning, I checked my credit score, watching it plummet as the fraudulent mortgage registered on my report. With each drop, years of careful financial management evaporated. Ryan, meanwhile, had launched a preemptive public relations campaign. He told extended family I had agreed to help with his business, but was having a psychotic break and inventing conspiracy theories. Cousins who'd attended my housewarming party now avoided my calls. My Aunt Brenda, once close, texted that she was praying for my mental health. At work, I was relegated to showing rental properties the lowest commission assignments. Stephanie was protecting me from stress, while simultaneously protecting the agency from my complicated situation. My income had dropped by 80%, but Rachel and Tom proved to be godsends. Beyond providing housing, they introduced me to their network of real estate investors, people who understood the business and were skeptical of Ryan's overnight success. Something's not adding up with Armstrong Ventures, Tom said over dinner at their home. Ryan's claiming major retail contracts, but I called some contacts. Nobody's heard of him. The business might be as fake as the mortgage, Rachel added, refilling my wine glass. He needed that money for something else. I sighed. Does it matter? The money's gone, and my house is on the line. It matters for court, Tom insisted. Fraud with a purpose looks very different from desperation. That night, my phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Natalie? It's Jessica. I nearly hung up. Wait, please. I need to talk to you. Not on the phone, in person. Why would I meet you? Because I have information you need. About where the money went. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop 2 towns over. I told Diana, who insisted on being parked nearby. Jessica arrived wearing oversized sunglasses and a baseball cap, looking nervously over her shoulder. Gone was the polished, confident woman who'd flaunted her tennis bracelet at dinner. Ryan doesn't know I'm here, she said immediately. He can't know. Why are you doing this? She removed her sunglasses, revealing a faint bruise near her eye. Because I'm scared of what he's becoming. According to Jessica, only a small portion of the money had gone to the business. The rest had vanished into gambling debts, luxury purchases, and most shockingly payments to someone named Vince Martelli. Who's Vince Martelli? A loan shark, Jessica whispered. Ryan borrowed $200,000 last year at insane interest. When he couldn't pay, this Martelli character threatened us. The mortgage money mainly went to him. And you participated in defrauding me to pay a loan shark? I didn't know until after. Ryan said you had agreed to a business loan. I only discovered the truth when I found the original mortgage papers. I didn't fully believe her, but the information was valuable. If what you're saying is true, why not go to the police? Martelli has connections. And Ryan, she touched her bruise, isn't himself lately. As Jessica left, she paused. Check Ryan's office at home. Bottom drawer of his desk. There's a ledger. Diana was skeptical when I relayed the conversation. She could be setting you up. Creating reasonable doubt by blaming a mysterious loan shark. But what if she's telling the truth? That question was still on my mind when I received a certified letter from my bank. Due to suspicious activity, they were initiating foreclosure proceedings on both mortgages. I had 30 days to resolve the situation or vacate. I called my parents in desperation. Dad answered. What do you want, Natalie? The bank is foreclosing. I'm going to lose my house. Silence then. Ryan says he can fix this if you drop the fraud allegations. He created this situation. He's family. You're choosing a house over your brother, and you're choosing a con man over your daughter. Dad's voice hardened. Your mother and I have made our position clear. Either you work this out with Ryan, or you're on your own. I've been on my own since I found those papers. After I hung up, I sat in Rachel and Tom's guest room, staring at the wall. I'd lost my house. My job was in jeopardy. My boyfriend had betrayed me. And my parents had disowned me, all because I refused to be Ryan's victim. For a moment, my second near breaking point, I considered calling Ryan and surrendering, just make it stop. But then I remembered Jessica's words about the ledger. I texted Michael. Need to pick up some clothes from your place. We'll be there in 20. I had left a drawer of belongings at his apartment. He wasn't home when I arrived, using the key he hadn't asked for yet. I gathered my things quickly, then, heart pounding, checked his phone charging by the bed. What I found was better than I'd hoped. Text conversations with Ryan dating back months, explicitly discussing the mortgage fraud. Michael, are you sure this is legal? Ryan, it's a gray area. She'll never know. Once the business takes off, I'll pay it back before she finds out. Michael, and if she does find out? Ryan, keep her distracted. That's your job. She trusts you. I forwarded the conversation to myself, took screenshots, and slipped out before Michael returned. In my car, I called Diana. I have proof, I said, voice shaking with adrenaline. Actual proof Ryan planned this months ago. That's great, Diana replied, but she sounded distracted. Listen, there's something else. I just got a call from someone named Thomas Reeves. Says he used to be Ryan's business partner? From the cryptocurrency thing? I met him once. He claims Ryan defrauded their investors. When I mentioned your situation, he wasn't surprised, said there were others. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Ryan had left a trail of victims, and I was finally finding them. The best defense is a good offense. These words, spoken by Diana 3 weeks into our legal battle, became my mantra as we shifted strategies. Instead of just protecting myself, I would systematically expose Ryan's entire fraud operation. Thomas Reeves, Ryan's former cryptocurrency partner, introduced us to 5 other people who claimed Ryan had swindled them: 2 former business partners, an elderly investor, and 2 family friends. Each had a similar story, promises of enormous returns, followed by excuses, altered documents, and lost money. We formed what Diana jokingly called the Ryan Armstrong Victim Support Group, meeting weekly in her office to share information and evidence. One victim had recorded phone calls. Another had emails where Ryan admitted using funds differently than promised. The elderly investor, Mrs. Clement, had a handwritten IOU with changing terms. Individually, each case might seem like a misunderstanding, Diana explained. Together, they show a pattern of deliberate fraud. Meanwhile, I worked with Rachel and Tom to rebuild my professional reputation. They referred a wealthy client who needed to sell multiple properties quickly due to relocation. The commission would sustain me for months if I could close the deals. Just focus on helping Carl with his portfolio, Rachel advised. Let us handle the gossip. And there was plenty of gossip. Ryan had escalated his smear campaign, telling colleagues I was unstable and vindictive. He even appeared at my office, creating a scene in the lobby until security escorted him out. "Your sister is having a breakdown," he shouted as they removed him. "Her accusations are destroying our family." The performance worked on some people. My cousin Heather called, concerned. "Everyone's worried about you, Natalie. Your parents are heartbroken." "Did they mention Ryan stole $500,000 from me?" "They said you're making wild accusations because you're jealous of his success. His success is funded by my house." "But business is going well. He's offering to make you whole once the profits come in." I wanted to scream. Instead, I tried a different approach. "Heather, have Mom and Dad ever offered to mortgage their house for Ryan's business?" Silence. Then, "That's different." "Why?" "They're older. They need security. And I don't?" Conversations like this went nowhere. I needed irrefutable evidence. Following Jessica's tip, Diana filed legal motions to access Ryan and Jessica's home office during the discovery process. Ryan's attorney, paid for by my parents, fought hard against it, which only convinced us something valuable was there. While the legal battle continued, I focused on practical security. I installed cameras at Rachel and Tom's rental property. I documented every call, text, and encounter with Ryan or my parents. I began recording all conversations. Pennsylvania being a 2-party consent state, I always started with, "I'm recording this conversation." Ryan's harassment intensified. When he couldn't reach me directly, he targeted my friends. Diana received threatening late-night calls. Rachel and Tom found their real estate listings flooded with fake negative reviews. "He's getting desperate," Diana noted. "That's good and bad. Good because desperate people make mistakes. Bad because desperate people are dangerous." The danger became real when Ryan discovered where I was staying. I returned from showing a property to find the rental unit's door ajar, desk drawers open, papers scattered. Nothing valuable was taken. He'd been looking for evidence. Diana immediately filed for a restraining order, which the judge granted based on the break-in and documented harassment. This small victory gave me leverage to push harder on accessing his home office. 4 days later, Ryan's attorney proposed a settlement. If I dropped all claims and signed a non-disclosure agreement, Ryan would transfer $100,000 to me immediately. That's less than a quarter of what he took, I pointed out during our conference call. It's a good faith initial payment, his attorney replied smoothly. The rest would follow as the business generates revenue. So I'm supposed to trust Ryan to pay me later? The same Ryan who forged my signature? My client admits poor judgment, but maintains the funds were always intended as a loan, not theft. Diana muted the call on our end. They're scared. The offer will go up. She was right. By the end of the day, Ryan had increased his offer to $200,000 immediate payment, with the remainder due in 6 months. Still not good enough, Diana told them. We need full repayment, plus damages and legal fees. That evening, my parents attempted their own intervention. They appeared at Rachel and Tom's rental without warning. Through the security camera, I watched them ring the doorbell repeatedly. Finally, I answered through the camera's speaker. What do you want? Natalie, please, Mom pleaded. This has gone far enough. Ryan's offering a very generous settlement. Half of what he stole is generous? Dad stepped forward. He's your brother. Family forgives. Did you mortgage your house for his business, Dad? His face hardened. That's not the point. It's exactly the point. You're asking me to sacrifice my financial security while risking nothing yourselves. If you don't accept this offer, Dad said slowly, and continue this vindictive campaign against your brother, you are no longer welcome in this family. The ultimatum hung in the air. I already lost my family, I replied, the day you chose Ryan's fraud over my truth. I turned off the camera and collapsed on the sofa, shaking. Despite knowing I was right, their rejection cut deep. They were my parents. How could they discard me so easily? My phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Carrie, my mother's sister. Your parents told me what's happening. I'm so disappointed in you, Natalie. Family should come first. The third betrayal. Aunt Carrie, who had helped me move into my house, who had celebrated every professional milestone with me, had also chosen Ryan's side without even hearing mine. I was about to throw my phone across the room when it rang. Unknown number. Hello? Natalie? It's Jessica again. We need to talk. Her voice was hushed, urgent. About what? About helping each other. I have the ledger. And more. Why would you help me now? A pause. Because Ryan's not just stealing from family anymore. He's gotten involved with dangerous people. I need out before everything explodes, and I need leverage. What kind of leverage? The kind that proves Ryan committed multiple felonies. The kind that can protect both of us when everything falls apart. I should have hung up. Jessica had participated in defrauding me, had lied repeatedly, but something in her voice, real fear, made me agree to meet again. Tomorrow, same coffee shop. Bring whatever evidence you have. As I ended the call, I felt the tide beginning to turn. Ryan had made a critical mistake, creating too many victims. Now we were banding together, and his house of cards was beginning to wobble. The coffee shop was nearly empty when Jessica slipped into the seat across from me. She wore the same disguise, baseball cap, sunglasses, plus a scarf that could be pulled up to hide her face. She placed a manila envelope on the table between us. Is that the ledger? I asked. She nodded, glancing nervously toward the door. And bank statements, communications with Vince Martelli, everything. I didn't reach for it immediately. Why are you really doing this, Jessica? Last month you were calling me mentally unstable. She removed her sunglasses, revealing not just the fading bruise I'd seen before, but a newer, darker one around her left eye. Ryan's not who I thought I married. When the money problems started, I pushed him to fix things. I didn't ask too many questions about how. That was my mistake. And now? Now he's unraveling. The business is failing. It was never real to begin with. Just a shell to justify the cash flow. Most of your mortgage money went straight to Martelli, but it wasn't enough. Ryan took out loans from 3 other loan sharks. They're all demanding payment. I studied her face, looking for deception. You could be setting me up. I recorded him. She pushed her phone across the table and pressed play on an audio file. Ryan's voice, slurred with alcohol. Doesn't matter how we get it. Natalie's going to drop the case because she has no choice. Once we have access to her accounts again, we can. Jessica's voice calm. She's frozen out of her own accounts. How does that help us? Her broker's holding commissions for her. At least 50 grand. I've got a guy who can hack her direct deposit information. My blood ran cold. He was planning to steal my commissions. That's from 3 days ago, Jessica said, stopping the recording. He's completely out of control. And I'm afraid of what happens when these loan sharks lose patience. I opened the manila envelope. Inside was indeed a ledger, documenting money movement that matched the timeline of my forged mortgage. Bank statements showed transfers to someone labeled VM, totaling over $300,000. There were also printouts of threatening text messages, photos of luxury purchases, including Jessica's tennis bracelet, and a hand-drawn organizational chart of what appeared to be shell companies. This is extensive, I said. Ryan keeps meticulous records. He thinks it protects him somehow. I looked up from the papers. What do you want in exchange for this? Protection, she answered immediately. When this all comes out, and it will, I need immunity. I need it on record that I cooperated. You participated in defrauding me. Under duress, she touched her bruised eye. I'll testify to everything: the forgery, the shell companies, the loan sharks. But I need a deal. I didn't have the authority to offer immunity, but Diana had prepared me for this possibility. I can talk to my lawyer. If your information leads to recovering my money and clearing my name, we'll work something out. Jessica visibly relaxed. There's one more thing. Ryan's main investor, Gregory Phillips, he's not a real investor. He's Martelli's cousin, installed to monitor the business. If you approach him correctly, he might flip on Ryan, too. Martelli doesn't like loose ends. This information was gold not just for my case, but potentially for building a larger criminal case against Ryan. How do I contact Phillips without alerting Ryan? Jessica wrote a phone number on a napkin. Tell him Jess sent you regarding the special accounting arrangement. He'll understand. As she stood to leave, I asked the question that had been bothering me. Did you ever care about Ryan, or was it always about money? She paused. I loved the man I thought he was. Ambitious, clever, willing to do whatever it took to succeed. I just didn't realize whatever it took included destroying his own sister. She pulled her scarf up. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about your house. I watched her leave, wondering if I'd just been played again, or if she was genuinely turning against Ryan. Either way, the evidence was real. I immediately called Diana and forwarded Jessica's recording. This is huge, Diana said after listening. The ledger alone could be enough to prove intent to defraud. Add the recording discussing further theft, and we've got him cornered. What about Jessica's immunity request? Let me talk to the prosecutor. If her information leads to criminal charges, they might consider a deal. But Natalie, be careful. If Ryan's desperate enough to plan hacking your accounts, he's desperate enough for worse. That evening, I called the number Jessica had given me for Gregory Phillips. A gruff voice answered on the third ring. Who's this? My name is Natalie Armstrong. Jess sent me regarding the special accounting arrangement. Silence then. Meet me tomorrow, Anders Park, noon. Bench by the duck pond. Come alone. Before I could respond, he hung up. Diana was firmly against the meeting. This has red flags all over it. Isolated location, come alone instruction. It screams ambush. But if Phillips really has information, then he can meet us at my office, with my security team present. We reached a compromise. I would meet Phillips, but Diana and a private investigator she hired would be nearby, recording everything. I would wear a panic button linked to Diana's phone. The next morning, Ryan discovered Jessica's betrayal. My phone exploded with texts from unknown numbers, friends of Ryan's and Jessica's reporting that he had completely lost it after finding the ledger missing. Jessica had fled to a hotel, and Ryan was breaking everything in the house. Then came a voicemail from Ryan himself. You think you're so clever, turning my own wife against me? This isn't over, Natalie. Not even close. You have no idea what I'm capable of. The threat was explicit enough that Diana immediately forwarded it to the police and the judge overseeing the restraining order. Within hours, a warrant was issued for Ryan's arrest for violating the order. But Ryan had vanished. I arrived at Anders Park at 11:45, heart pounding. The panic button felt heavy in my pocket. Diana and her investigator were positioned at opposite ends of the park, pretending to read newspapers like something from a spy movie. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit approached the bench precisely at noon. Without asking, he sat beside me. "Miss Armstrong, I understand you've been having trouble with Ryan. That's putting it mildly. He forged my signature on a mortgage for $450,000. Phillips nodded. That money never went to the business. At least not most of it. I know about Vince Martelli. His eyebrows rose slightly. Jessica has been informative. She mentioned, "You're not really an investor." He smiled thinly. "I oversee certain financial arrangements for Mr. Martelli. Your brother represented himself as a successful entrepreneur with significant family backing. By the time we discovered the deception, he had already taken substantial funds. So, Martelli is after him too. Mr. Martelli dislikes being defrauded even more than family members do." Phillips handed me a flash drive. "This contains Ryan's actual business records, not the fabricated ones he shows potential investors. It should help your case considerably. Why would you help me?" "Mr. Martelli prefers to handle his own problems privately. Law enforcement involvement complicates things. If your case against Ryan proceeds, it creates unwanted attention." I understood the implication. Martelli wanted Ryan in legal trouble, so the loan shark's involvement wouldn't be scrutinized. What happens to Ryan's debt to Martelli? That's between them. But let's just say Mr. Martelli would find it convenient if Ryan were otherwise occupied for a while. As Phillips stood to leave, he added casually, "Your brother is currently staying at the Airport Royale Motel, room 118, registered under the name Peter Simmons. In case that information is useful to authorities looking for him." After Phillips left, I texted Diana to meet me at her car. We drove directly to the police station with the flash drive and Phillips' information about Ryan's whereabouts. Detective Reynolds, who had been handling the restraining order violation, listened to our update with increasing interest. "So we've got mortgage fraud, potential wire fraud, multiple loan shark connections, and now a restraining order violation," he summarized. "I'll send officers to the motel." 2 hours later, my phone rang. Ryan had been arrested at the Airport Royale Motel. In his possession were a freshly purchased bus ticket to Canada, $17,000 in cash, and a laptop containing evidence of multiple fraudulent schemes, including a draft email to my broker with altered bank account information for my commission deposits. The laptop also contained something unexpected: emails between Ryan and my parents discussing the mortgage fraud before it happened. They hadn't just known afterward, they had actively advised him on how to forge my signature convincingly, suggesting he practice with old documents from our childhood home. The betrayal was even deeper than I had imagined. When Ryan discovered Jessica had given me the ledger, he'd completely unraveled. He'd attacked her, destroyed their apartment, and fled with whatever cash he could gather. Jessica had sought medical attention for her injuries and filed for both a restraining order and divorce the same day. That night, as I processed the day's events, my parents called repeatedly. I finally answered, putting the call on speaker so Diana could witness. "Natalie, they've arrested Ryan." Mom's voice was panicked. "You have to drop the charges." I didn't press charges for violating the restraining order. The state did. "But you can tell them it was a misunderstanding." "It wasn't. He threatened me explicitly." Dad cut in. "This family drama has gone far enough. Your brother's life is being destroyed by his own actions. He made mistakes, but he doesn't deserve jail." Diana nodded encouragingly as I delivered the line we'd practiced. "I saw the emails, Dad. You and Mom knew about the forgery beforehand. You helped him plan it." Silence. That's taken out of context." Dad finally said. The context is you choosing to help Ryan steal my house, rather than helping him find legitimate financing or, I don't know, telling him that fraud is wrong. We were trying to help both of you, Mom cried. The business would have benefited everyone. You betrayed me, both of you. And now you're facing potential criminal charges for conspiracy. This was a bluff. The prosecutor hadn't decided whether to charge my parents, but they didn't know that. Criminal charges? Dad's voice shook. For helping our son? For conspiring to commit mortgage fraud. The emails are explicit. I could almost see them exchanging panicked looks through the phone. What do you want? Dad finally asked, defeat in his voice. What did I want? Revenge? Justice? My old life back? None seemed possible anymore. I want what I've always wanted, I said quietly. My house secure, my name cleared, and my brother to get help for his real problems instead of enabling his criminal behavior. If you want to start making things right, you can post his bail on the condition he enters treatment for gambling addiction and makes full restitution. After they hung up, Diana squeezed my shoulder. You did great. They're cornered now. Does it matter? The family's destroyed regardless. The family they pretended to be is destroyed, Diana corrected. Maybe something more honest can eventually replace it. I wasn't sure I believed that, but for the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. The county courthouse became my second home over the next 3 months. What had started as a simple case of mortgage fraud had expanded into multiple investigations, conspiracy, wire fraud, identity theft, and even money laundering through Ryan's shell companies. The flash drive from Gregory Phillips had opened a Pandora's box of criminal activity. Diana worked tirelessly, coordinating with prosecutors and organizing evidence. She'd assembled a timeline connecting every fraudulent transaction, every forged document, every shell company. The visualization covered an entire wall of her office. It's like those crime boards in detective shows, I joked during a strategy session. Except this one's going to put your brother away for a long time, she replied, not smiling. Ryan had been released on bail posted by my parents, as I'd suggested, with conditions including treatment for gambling addiction and surrender of his passport. He and Jessica were living separately, their divorce proceedings moving quickly. Jessica had negotiated a cooperation agreement with prosecutors, trading her testimony for immunity on most charges. My parents maintained minimal contact with me, calling only to update me on Ryan's treatment progress or to relay settlement offers from his attorney. Each offer came closer to full restitution, but Diana advised patience. They're still hoping to avoid criminal prosecution, she explained. The more evidence we gather, the better our negotiating position. The bank had temporarily halted foreclosure proceedings on my house while the fraud investigation continued, but I still couldn't live there. I remained in Rachel and Tom's rental, now paying modest rent from the commissions I'd earned on Carl's property portfolio. Professionally, things had improved. Once news broke of Ryan's arrest, the rumors about my mental stability evaporated. Stephanie apologized and reinstated me to prime listings. Clients returned, but the financial damage was significant. My credit score had plummeted, and rebuilding would take years. Just as things seemed to be stabilizing, Ryan made a desperate move. His attorney filed an emergency motion to sell my house, claiming Ryan had legitimate business interests in the property that would be irreparably damaged by further delays. He's unbelievable, I fumed when Diana called with the news. He's still trying to profit from stealing my house. Diana was already preparing our response. He's getting nervous about the criminal charges. The prosecutor offered a deal. 5 years if he pleads guilty. He's hoping to cash out the house and flee before sentencing. We obtained an emergency injunction blocking any sale, but Ryan's attorney pushed for an accelerated hearing. The judge, an older man named Harrington, with a reputation for traditional values, seemed sympathetic to Ryan's claims of family business arrangements gone awry. The court recognizes that family financial matters often operate on trust rather than perfect documentation, Judge Harrington said during a preliminary hearing. Miss Armstrong's signature may well have been used with implied consent based on family patterns of financial cooperation. Diana was furious. He's basically saying that because you're family, Ryan had the right to forge your signature. We needed something definitive to change the judge's mind before the main hearing in 2 weeks. Diana suggested focusing on the pattern of fraud against multiple victims. If we can show this wasn't just a one-time family misunderstanding, but part of a larger criminal enterprise, even Harrington can't ignore it. We reached out to everyone from the Ryan Armstrong Victim Support Group, preparing affidavits detailing their experiences. Thomas Reeves provided copies of altered investment documents. Mrs. Clement shared her ever-changing IOU. But we still lacked the smoking gun that would convince Harrington. Meanwhile, my parents had escalated their pressure campaign. Mom called with news that Dad was having chest pains, implying the stress of the legal battle was killing him. Aunt Carrie showed up at my office, causing a scene in the reception area about destroying the family over money. Cousins sent guilt-inducing messages about Ryan's children, he had none, and our dying grandmother, who had passed away 5 years earlier. The emotional toll was exhausting. Some nights I lay awake wondering if I was being too harsh, too unforgiving. Other nights I seethed with anger at their manipulation. Diana suggested I see a therapist, and I finally agreed, starting weekly sessions with Dr. Chen, who specialized in family trauma. They're using your natural desire for family harmony against you, Dr. Chen observed during our second session. The question isn't whether you're being too harsh, it's whether they're taking responsibility for their actions. 2 days before the hearing that would determine my house's fate, I received an unexpected call from my mother. Her voice was uncharacteristically subdued. Natalie, there's something you should know. Your father and Ryan had a confrontation yesterday. What kind of confrontation? Ryan asked for more money for his defense, for living expenses. When your father refused, Ryan became threatening. Said Dad owed him because they were in this together. It got ugly. Did Ryan hurt him? No, but he broke some things, called us terrible names, said if we didn't help him, he'd make sure we went down with him. Her voice cracked. I've never seen him like that before. So cold. For the first time, my mother was seeing the Ryan I had seen. Not the golden child who could do no wrong, but a manipulative con man who used people until they had nothing left to give. I'm sorry that happened, I said carefully. Your father's reconsidering his statement to the prosecutor. About the emails. About his involvement. She paused. We were wrong, Natalie. I can't say it any plainer than that. We were wrong about everything. After we hung up, I sat processing this development. My parents' potential testimony could be the smoking gun we needed, but I didn't want to get my hopes up. They'd chosen Ryan over me repeatedly. What if this was just another manipulation? The answer came the next morning, when Diana called triumphantly. Your father just left the prosecutor's office. He's provided a full statement acknowledging his role in the fraud and confirming Ryan acted with deliberate criminal intent. The prosecutor's forwarding everything to Judge Harrington. Did he make a deal? Immunity in exchange for testimony against Ryan. Your mother's doing the same tomorrow. I felt oddly empty at the news. The validation was significant, but it had come so late, after so much damage. The final piece fell into place that evening, in the form of a voicemail from a heavily intoxicated Ryan. Apparently unaware of our parents' cooperation with prosecutors, he'd called to threaten me one last time. You think you've won, he slurred into the phone. But I'm always 2 steps ahead. Always have been. Did you really believe I didn't know what I was doing when I forged your signature? When I took out that mortgage? I knew exactly what I was doing, and I'd do it again. You always thought you were so much better than me with your perfect credit score and your perfect little house. Well, look at you now. The message continued with explicit threats about what would happen if I didn't drop the case before the hearing. I immediately forwarded it to Diana and Detective Reynolds. Is this enough? I asked Diana. Her response was immediate. More than enough. It's a confession and witness intimidation in one convenient package. The next morning, Diana filed an updated brief with the court, attaching the voicemail transcript, my parents' statements, and affidavits from Ryan's other victims. By afternoon, Judge Harrington had issued a new order. Ryan's motion to sell the house was denied, the fraudulent mortgage was declared void, and the case was referred for enhanced criminal prosecution based on the new evidence. Ryan was arrested again that evening for violating the terms of his bail by threatening a witness. This time, no one posted bail. As I sat in Diana's office reviewing the judge's order, a strange calm settled over me. The legal battle wasn't over. There would still be criminal trials, restitution hearings, credit restoration efforts, but the immediate threat to my house was gone. Ryan was contained. The truth had finally prevailed. "What are you thinking?" Diana asked, noticing my expression. "That sometimes justice actually works." I managed a small smile, and that I'm ready to go home. The day of Ryan's criminal trial arrived exactly 9 months after I'd discovered the fraudulent mortgage documents. The courthouse steps were crowded with local reporters. Ryan's case had attracted attention as more victims came forward, revealing a fraud network spanning 5 states. I'd spent the previous week preparing with prosecutors, reviewing evidence, and practicing my testimony. Diana would be at my side throughout, both as my attorney and my friend. The night before, Rachel and Tom had hosted a small dinner, toasting the end of my ordeal. "No matter what happens tomorrow," Tom had said, raising his glass, "you've already won by refusing to be a victim." Now, standing outside the imposing courthouse, I wasn't so sure. My stomach churned with anxiety. Despite overwhelming evidence, trials were unpredictable, and I would have to face Ryan directly for the first time since his arrest. Diana squeezed my arm reassuringly. "Remember, just tell the truth. Your story is compelling because it's real." Inside, the courtroom was nearly full. In the front row behind the prosecution table sat Thomas Reeves, Mrs. Clement, and 3 other victims of Ryan's schemes. Jessica occupied a seat near the back, dressed conservatively and avoiding eye contact with everyone. My parents entered just before proceedings began, looking older than I remembered. Mom had lost weight. Dad's posture was stooped. They nodded hesitantly in my direction, but sat several rows behind me. Our relationship remained tentative at best, despite their eventual cooperation with prosecutors. When Ryan was brought in, I barely recognized him. Gone was the confident, well-dressed businessman. In his place stood a haggard man in an ill-fitting suit, dark circles under his eyes. He didn't look at me, keeping his gaze fixed on his attorney. The trial began with opening statements. The prosecutor, Elaine Morris, laid out a methodical case. Ryan Armstrong had engaged in a pattern of fraudulent activity culminating in the forgery of his sister's signature to mortgage her home for $450,000. "This isn't a case of family misunderstanding," Morris emphasized. "This is a case of calculated criminal behavior by a serial con artist who targeted his own sister after defrauding numerous others." Ryan's attorney countered with a strategy I hadn't anticipated: mental illness and addiction. "Ryan Armstrong suffers from gambling addiction and bipolar disorder that led to poor decision-making during manic episodes," he claimed. While his actions were undeniably wrong, they were driven by disease, not criminal intent. The prosecution called me as their first witness. Walking to the stand, I felt Ryan's eyes on me for the first time. His expression was unreadable. For nearly 2 hours, I detailed everything: discovering the forged documents, the confrontation dinner, the subsequent harassment, the frozen bank accounts, the professional damage. Morris guided me through the timeline Diana had so carefully constructed, introducing evidence at each step. During cross-examination, Ryan's attorney attempted to paint me as an unforgiving sister who refused reasonable settlement offers. "Isn't it true that your brother repeatedly tried to make amends? That he offered substantial repayment?" "He offered partial repayment only after being caught," I corrected. "And those offers came with demands that I help him evade criminal prosecution." "But you were never interested in reconciliation, were you, Miss Armstrong? Only retribution." Diana objected, argumentative. Sustained, said the judge. As I stepped down from the witness stand, I locked eyes with Ryan. For just a moment, I glimpsed something beneath his blank expression, not remorse, but rage. The same entitled fury that had led him to steal my house in the first place. I looked away first, unsettled by the raw hatred I'd seen. The prosecution methodically built their case over the next 3 days. Thomas Reeves testified about Ryan's cryptocurrency scheme. Bank officials detailed the forged documents. Gregory Phillips, appearing under subpoena, confirmed the loan shark connections. Detective Reynolds presented the evidence found on Ryan's laptop. Then came the most damaging testimony, my parents. Dad spoke first, voice cracking as he admitted helping Ryan practice forging my signature. I told myself it was just a short-term solution, he said, unable to look at me. Ryan promised the business was about to take off. He said Natalie would never even know. Did you believe him? Morris asked. Dad's shoulders sagged. I wanted to. It was easier than admitting what he really was. Mom's testimony was equally devastating. She described Ryan's escalating lies, the family dynamic that prioritized him, and her own complicity in enabling his behavior. We always made excuses for Ryan, she admitted. When he stole from his college roommate, we called it borrowing. When he cheated in business, we called it being aggressive. We convinced ourselves it was just how successful people operated. By the time Jessica took the stand, Ryan's defense was in shambles. She provided detailed accounts of how Ryan had systematically defrauded investors, manipulated family members, and threatened anyone who challenged him. He saw people as resources to be exploited, she testified. Family, most of all, because they were least likely to press charges. On the trial's final day, Ryan unexpectedly decided to testify in his own defense against his attorney's advice. It proved disastrous. Under the prosecutor's methodical questioning, Ryan's carefully constructed narrative of mental illness fell apart. He contradicted himself repeatedly about his intentions, his knowledge of the forgery's criminality, and his plans for the money. When Morris played the voicemail he'd left me where he explicitly admitted knowing what he was doing, Ryan lost control. You don't understand. I deserved that money, he shouted, rising from the witness stand. I've worked twice as hard as she ever did. Everything always came easy to her while I struggled. That house should have been mine. The judge ordered a recess while Ryan's attorney calmed him down. When proceedings resumed, the damage was done. His outburst had confirmed what the prosecution had argued all along. This wasn't about mental illness or addiction. It was about entitlement and deliberate fraud. After closing arguments, the jury deliberated for just 3 hours before returning with their verdict. Guilty on all counts, including mortgage fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, and witness intimidation. Ryan stood impassively as the verdict was read. Only when the judge ordered him taken into custody pending sentencing did he look at me directly. The hatred in his eyes made me flinch. In the courthouse corridor afterward, Diana hugged me tightly. It's over. Really over. I nodded, too emotional to speak. The verdict brought validation, but no joy. My brother was going to prison. My family had imploded. No outcome could truly repair that damage. As we gathered our things to leave, my parents approached hesitantly. Natalie, Mom began, we know words aren't enough. They're not, I agreed. But we want to try to make amends, if you'll let us, Dad continued. However long it takes. I studied their faces, the guilt, the regret, the hope for forgiveness. Part of me wanted to walk away, to punish them as they had punished me. But another part recognized something important. Unlike Ryan, they were acknowledging their wrongdoing, taking responsibility. It was a start. I'm not ready for Sunday dinners, I said finally. But maybe coffee, sometime. With Dr. Chen, my therapist. Relief washed over their faces. Mom nodded quickly. Whatever you need, whatever terms you set. As they walked away, Diana squeezed my shoulder. You're generous. I'm not sure I would be. It's not generosity, I corrected. It's self-preservation. Holding on to anger only hurts me now. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited with questions about the verdict. I declined comment, but as we walked to Diana's car, a familiar figure approached from the parking lot. Jessica. Natalie, she called. Can I speak with you? Just for a minute? Diana tensed beside me. You don't owe her anything. It's okay, I assured her. I'll meet you at the car. Jessica looked different, simpler, without the designer clothes and perfect makeup she'd always hidden behind. She twisted a tissue in her hands nervously. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Not just courtroom sorry, but really sorry. For everything. Why tell me now? Because I'm leaving tomorrow. Moving back to my hometown in Oregon. Starting over. She hesitated. And because you deserved better. From all of us. I nodded, unsure what to say. No response seemed adequate for the complexity of our connection. Not quite enemies, certainly not friends, but bound by shared trauma. Good luck in Oregon, I finally offered. She gave a small, sad smile. Good luck with your house. I hope it feels like home again. As she walked away, I realized something important. This chapter of my life was ending, not with triumph or celebration, but with quiet resolution. The legal battle was won. Ryan would face consequences. My house was secure. Now came the harder part, rebuilding everything else. 6 months after Ryan's conviction, I finally moved back into my house. The process of reclaiming it had been surprisingly emotional, each room holding memories of both the life I'd built and the betrayal that had shattered it. The first night back, I sat alone on my living room floor with a glass of wine, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes. The house felt both familiar and strange, like a beloved sweater that no longer quite fit. I'd spent weeks repainting, rearranging furniture, smudging sage in corners, attempting to exorcise the violation Ryan had brought into my space. Financially, recovery progressed slowly but steadily. The court had voided the fraudulent mortgage entirely, and restitution payments from Ryan's seized assets had helped offset some of my losses. My credit score, once near perfect, remained damaged, but was gradually climbing as I worked with financial counselors to document the fraud and rebuild my history. The most difficult recovery was emotional. Despite weekly sessions with Dr. Chen, I still struggled with trust issues and hypervigilance. I installed an advanced security system with cameras monitoring every entrance. I checked my credit report obsessively. I scrutinized every financial document with paranoid attention to detail. Trauma responses take time to heal, Dr. Chen reminded me during our sessions. You're not being paranoid. You're responding to a very real violation. The vigilance will ease as you rebuild your sense of safety. Ryan had received a 7-year sentence with the possibility of parole after 4, plus restitution requirements that would follow him long after release. I had no contact with him and no desire for any. According to my parents, he had initially refused treatment in prison, maintaining that he was the victim of an unjust system and vindictive family members. Recently, though, they reported he had finally agreed to attend gambling addiction support groups. My relationship with my parents remained complicated. We met monthly for coffee with Dr. Chen mediating, gradually working through layers of hurt, resentment, and misunderstanding. Progress was neither linear nor guaranteed. Some sessions ended with tearful breakthroughs, others with stony silence. Dad struggled to fully acknowledge his enabling role in Ryan's behavior. Mom vacillated between overwhelming guilt and instinctive defensiveness. Healing family trauma doesn't mean returning to the way things were, Dr. Chen explained during a particularly difficult session. It means creating something new based on honesty and boundaries. The new relationship included strict boundaries. No discussions about Ryan without my explicit consent. No unsupervised financial conversations. No pressure to accelerate reconciliation. My parents accepted these terms, recognizing them as the price of maintaining any relationship at all. Work provided the most straightforward path to normalcy. 6 months after the trial, I received a job offer from a prestigious real estate firm in Philadelphia's mainline area. The opportunity meant leaving Stephanie's agency, but it also meant a fresh start in a place where fewer people knew my story. My new colleagues were aware of my experience with mortgage fraud, but not the painful family details. Rachel and Tom remained my closest friends and strongest supporters. They had been there through every phase of the ordeal, offering housing when I was displaced, testimony when I needed witnesses, celebration when victory was secured, and quiet companionship when the emotional aftermath hit hardest. "You know, most people would have broken under what you went through," Tom remarked one evening, as we shared dinner on my newly rebuilt deck. "I did break," I admitted, several times. "You just helped put me back together." Rachel raised her glass. "To chosen family, better than the assigned version." That phrase, chosen family, resonated deeply. Through this ordeal, I had discovered who truly deserved that designation. Diana, who had fought tirelessly for justice. Rachel and Tom, who had offered shelter without question. Colleagues who had defended my reputation. Even Detective Reynolds, who had treated my case with unwavering seriousness. 3 weeks after moving back home, I hosted my first dinner party in the reclaimed space, a small gathering of this chosen family. We ate at my dining table, laughed on my porch, and created new memories to layer over the painful ones. Diana arrived last, bearing an unusual housewarming gift, a framed transcript page from the trial. "This is weird," she acknowledged as I unwrapped it. "But I thought you might want it." The page contained a single exchange from my testimony. Prosecutor: "Miss Armstrong, after discovering the fraud, why didn't you simply accept one of your brother's settlement offers?" Me: "Because this wasn't just about money. It was about truth, about consequences, about saying that what happened to me mattered, even if it was inconvenient for everyone else." Reading those words months later, I recognized their continuing truth. Standing up for myself had cost relationships, security, and peace of mind. But the alternative, accepting the violation to maintain a false family harmony, would have cost something far more fundamental. My self-respect. The healing process wasn't complete and might never be. Ryan's actions had permanently altered my family landscape, my relationship with my home, and my ability to trust. But they had also revealed strengths I hadn't known I possessed. Resilience, determination, and the courage to insist on justice despite immense pressure to capitulate. As my guests departed that evening, Diana lingered behind. "You seem better," she observed, "more yourself." "I'm not the same self," I corrected. "But maybe this version is stronger." She nodded, understanding. "Any regrets about how everything played out?" I considered the question seriously. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret the pain it caused even to Ryan, despite everything. But I don't regret standing my ground. Some principles are worth the cost." After Diana left, I walked slowly through my reclaimed house, running my hands along walls that were once again truly mine. The violation would always be part of this home's history, but it would not define its future. Just as Ryan's betrayal would always be part of my story, but would not determine my ending. That night, for the first time in nearly a year, I slept soundly in my own bed, in my own house, secure in the knowledge that I had fought for what was right and won. Have you ever had to stand up to family when they've crossed a serious line? What boundaries have you had to establish with loved ones to protect yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Your support helps me continue sharing these difficult but important stories of survival and resilience. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the family we're born into. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you strength in your own battles for justice and healing.